One of the various things in the portfolio of our next speaker is CCS, but he's also going to talk to us about other things. He's the SVP for New Energy Solutions at Equinor, which is the rebranded, renamed Statoil, let's not forget. And so please let's welcome Stephen Bull.
Thank you, Nisha. Actually, when we first changed our name from Statoil to Equinor, I was in a conference in Brussels talking about CCS and other things, and I pretended we were from a startup company working apps, and we do loads of cool, funky stuff. And everyone asked me, wow, I really like your company. It was really exciting. And so obviously something to do with the branding of Statoil wasn't that strong in certain segments, but it obviously is going to get stronger with Equinor as well in the future. The next 10 minutes, I'm going to give you this taster of what we're doing in terms of energy transition, and that covers in the company both the challenges, but also the real difficult aspects of our company, and also our business model in the future. So we take all of that in together and see where we go with it at the end in the debate and the discussion. First thing I must say is that I'm slightly obsessed about energy transition myself. So it's one of those weird things, not just because I'm lucky enough to work in a company that works with both fossil fuels, but also renewables, but also carbon capture and storage, energy storage, solar, lots of other elements as well. So it's a privileged position to be in, but also it's an extremely difficult discussion as well, full of many dichotomies. I think for anyone that's Norwegian here, they understand that fully. So this slide here is the one that's both going to depress you and hopefully inspire you at the same time. The depressing bit is essentially in the middle up here. I got this from Glenn Peters, from Cicero, who's a fantastic researcher looking at CO2 issues. CO2 is going the wrong way, as we know. This is fossil fuel CO2 emissions. Globally, we had a bit of a hiatus, stopped up for a couple of years. Last 3 years have been on the rise again. Lower oil prices, lower carbon and coal pricing as well, and also just a general economic growth we've seen pushing back up there. But it's going the wrong way, and that is a serious issue. The other part is that maybe we're underselling climate change. That is the underlying issue that we maybe see from the IPCC reports. This is actually worse than we think, and that doesn't particularly inspire you. What does inspire you is actually all the kids that were in Oslo and many other cities around Norway, but also across the world, that are actually waking up and helping politicians to wake up to what this issue is and to normalize climate discussions, the same way we tried to normalize being anti-nuclear weapons like I was a kid as well. So the depressing and the exciting bit about this one, this thing about energy transition is it takes a long time. It really is a journey, and even though time is running out in that respect. But if you look at this particular chart, this is biomass and waste is the grey brown part here. You've got the greying, the coal, and the oil. What's important to understand is that the transition over this time takes partly because of market forces, its regulatory forces, and politics. So it took 50 years for oil, for example, to actually capture about 50% market share versus coal. Initial driver for this, obviously, is you find oil, the prices go down, but the political push came in the First World War when Churchill decided, as the head of the Admiralty, to move across from oil based on shipping rather than coal. It was much faster and more efficient. And then it drove on from there in particular, and then prices, etc., dictate afterwards. Same with natural gas. Natural gas is, in a sense, is caught up in where it's produced, and you have a pipeline solution. So it didn't get until we found wider LNG, liquefied natural gas solutions, before you can start selling this abroad in global markets. Then you can start capture market share. But it takes decades to shift this one. And that's the harder bit here, is that we see the fantastic growth of renewables in particular. Fastest growing energy sector we've ever seen historically. But this stuff here, this coal biomass, is going to stick around for a long time. The coal in particular is a sticky kind of thing. And again, that's the problem. Hydrocarbons are extremely convenient and they're very cheap. And that's the problem with both of them at the same time. And obviously, they're destroying the planet as well. So trying to force this transition, force something particularly on the coal side, and then transitioning from oil to get to peak oil demand is extremely important. And it won't just happen from market forces alone. The way we're challenging this in Equinor is to see really about both how we produce our oil and gas is extremely important, that our own climate house is in order, that we have low emissions for how we produce, but also that we find profitable solutions within renewables as well. On the renewable side of this one, the key growth sector for us is actually offshore wind. Probably doesn't make much of a controversy for many in Norway, since we're a large offshore operator. As you all know, we're global. We use much of the same supply chain, large marine complex applications, large capex as well. These are high barrier to entry kind of projects. And also we've become pretty good at this stuff, and we're producing about 1.2 gigawatts today globally, and we have a lot more in the pipeline in the future. On the other side of this one is the new low-carbon business opportunities, and this is directly related to CCS, building on 23 years already of CO2 storage at Sleipner and Snøhvit, but also to look into opportunities for decarbonization of natural gas through hydrogen as well. To go a little bit of flavor about our offshore wind portfolio at the moment, we've been in this business for quite a long time, and it's been kind of the best kept secret in a sense, before we lifted it out and put it into a new business area called New Energy Solutions. This is our sort of forward-looking portfolio. We also have production going on in the UK and in Germany today. We also have floating wind, which is the world's first wind farm, which is floating wind farm commercial in Scotland. But the portfolio at the moment, we're looking at about maybe 10 gigawatts of power potential at the moment. Dogger Bank is the largest consented wind farm in the world. We now just need to win an auction in the UK this summer to develop that one. The east coast of the US, we put in auctions already in New York, New Jersey. We bought new acreage in Massachusetts. Nice growth area there, 4 gigawatts potential. We're taking bets in Poland as well. There is no offshore wind in Poland currently today, but we do believe that the energy transition to Poland will be coming. It will be tackled to do this, to try and move away from coal, and it has fantastic conditions for offshore wind, and we're taking bets in Poland to build that business up. On the floating side, Liv mentioned the Hywind Tampen project, which we're really proud of, integrating oil and gas technology with renewables, really exciting for us, and also a chance to actually build a global portfolio as well. Not just linking floating wind to oil and gas, but 80% of the world's best wind resources are in water depths of over 50, 60 meters, where you need floating solutions. Norway has great potential there. Difficult thing is the power price is too low at the moment. We're testing out within solar as well. Now, as a big company for Equinor, we're used to oil and gas types of projects, and doing small projects actually is quite hard. We have Batwind, which is an energy storage project we have in Scotland. It's a 1 megawatt lithium-ion battery. The business case for it is that we build the energy management system ourselves with this one, but actually trying to get a bunch of team together to work on a 1 megawatt battery, we're not used to doing stuff like that. We like to do Johan Sverdrup and Castberg and mega projects globally. So actually getting our head around doing small projects is something we need to learn as a company. One platform that we have for doing that is our work together with Scatec Solar. And we have 10% of the company. We have a strategic relationship to Scatec. They have a very interesting portfolio, particularly in South America. But also the first development we pushed together with Scatec was in Brazil. And we heard from Luis the exciting opportunities in Brazil. But that's a country we've been in for decades. We really know the country well. We have a lot of people on the ground. It seems natural that we could try and build something off our oil and gas relationships in solar as well. This project, Guanizul, is developing at the moment within Argentina, another exciting development for us, so we can see quite a few more projects in the pipeline. But what we need to do is actually learn about how do we add value to this ourselves within Equinor. How do we bring in our competence within operations and maintenance, within digitalization, within our procurement strategies and logistics as well? How do we bring that together and actually create value for ourselves? Last one here, this is, it's been mentioned before about, this is the Northern Lights project, which sometimes we call it, or the European or Norwegian CO2, but it has so many different names. What I would argue about is the important thing is that this project happens to be in Norway, but it's a European open source CO2 storage area. And the important thing about this is we have competence in Norway with CO2 storage and CCS. We have that already. Europe needs this to develop. We saw already from with cement, with steel manufacturing, fertilizer, you name it, petrochemicals, they need CO2 solutions. And Heidelberg Cement, which is one of the potential off-takers of CO2 here, produces with 80 million tons of CO2 a year. It's inherent in their business model. They will produce CO2 because you produce clinker to produce cement. And they need to do this in the business model. So if we need still those kinds of industrial jobs in Europe, we have to have a solution like this. The idea being that we off-take CO2 from large industrial centers, whether it's Rotterdam or Teesside or other areas, Le Havre in France, and then we liquefy it, we put it onto ships, we take it up to the west coast of Norway, and we pump it down to an saline aquifer. And this is a very, very scalable business model. It's a low threshold to start with it. And the key bit about it is that we need continuous deployment of capture. That's the main thing. Just like we've seen with offshore wind, onshore wind, solar, it's deployment, deployment, deployment drives down costs. And this is what we can do to try and get it into the money concept at a European ETS price, hopefully between 50 and 100 euros. That's what we need to aim for to try and bring this down as a business model. This picture here, I think this is the most important climate project going on the planet today. Now, I would say that because we work with it, but the work that we do with Total and Shell on this is extremely important. If we can scale this and make it work in Europe, then you can scale this in China, you can scale it into the US, and you can scale it globally. And really, as we've seen, is that you have to have CO2 solutions as CCS if we can get anywhere near a 1.5 degree Paris Climate Summit. Okay, that's it for me. Thank you very much.
Okay, so he left us with that big thought about CCS, like a cliffhanger, right? Most important climate project in the world today, and then he stopped. So hold on to that. Do you agree? I mean, we've got Galoran talking about it, now Stephen Bull, and yet, why is nothing happening, or not enough? There are reservations. Are they in the room?